Hey man, how's the Arc Raiders movie coming along? Uh, Cal?
So, I messed up.
What did you do?
Well, I started playing Crimson Desert.
I went into Crimson Desert expecting a certain level of familiarity, another necessary game to experience. One more title in a sea of overhyped announcements and underwhelming releases. Before playing, I looked into it just enough to understand its focus, exploration. But beyond that, a mixed pot of mechanics from other popular titles. And it would be fair to say that it left people wondering if this amalgamation of systems could even work at all. But there was never a question that Crimson Desert would present its hero, Cliff, as the pivotal point to its inner workings. One that can't help but walk their very own path, a world built and expanded from the weight of its protagonist's footsteps.
There. Just up ahead. This is as far as your coin gets you. Good luck.
After all, that's what games do. They are constructs made for players to occupy the space that everything else will orbit. But Crimson Desert doesn't do that, and you'll often find yourself there, lost in that particular space, just beyond gravity, staring at a vista that feels like it's hiding its secrets from you. Yet somehow, you can't help but feel that it won't just give them away to anyone. Coming in with my preconceived notions, and after getting to experience it and seeing the approach Pearl Abyss has taken with their support, Crimson Desert made me pause, because it made me reflect on something we don't come across very often. The simple idea that a sense of scale does not have to be restricted to the size of the map. It can be achieved through the tools given for the player to approach it. And perhaps the secret into captivating an audience is not just about creating a compelling world. It's about providing enough options into how it can be experienced. And this, as simple as it may sound, might give us a glimpse to a way of developing games that the industry hasn't really thought about. If you're new here, I'm Cal. I play video games and occasionally talk about them too. Okay, quick disclaimer. Perhaps some of you have been playing Crimson Desert while others might still be on the fence about it. Rest assured, this video is spoiler-free and focuses on game development concepts and ideas. No information will be provided that could ruin or interfere with your sense of discovery with the game. Let's get started. On the surface, Crimson Desert looks familiar. A jigsaw made from all the pieces we've come to expect from an open world experience. But the difference does not lie in what it has to offer, but in the way that it offers it to you. So, instead of breaking this down traditionally, and with absolutely no spoilers, let's take a look at the basic tools the game hands you before it explains anything. Despite early criticism, the movement felt incredibly grounded to me since day one. Every step carried weight, every turn felt deliberate. And that matters because it stems from a design principle to keep you aligned with the game's incentive for exploration. It forces a contrast in how the player experiences pacing through the world. When you walk through a town, you don't just pass by, you notice it. The scale, intention, and motifs behind it. You feel like rushing would mean missing, But when you're out in the wild on horseback, sliding through narrow paths or moving through open terrain that feels like it's reclaiming itself, the same system becomes momentum. Rockstar understood this with Red Dead Redemption, and it's clear that Prologue took notes. Now, due to that early criticism, movement controls became one of the first mechanics to get updated. This simplified things like the original built-in stamina management systems while horse riding. Later on, however, through yet another update, the developers provided the option to choose between the two different movement controls. Combat also builds on other familiar foundations, but sharpens them.
I'll kill you, you fuck! Broken and beaten! Die where you stand! Your time's up! Prepare to die! Don't try to run now!
The obvious influence is Black Desert Online, but it's more controlled here. Each attack has identity, each chain feels logically connected. There's a rhythm to it, one that leans into something closer to a fighting game. At times it reminds me of Dragon's Dogma. At others it echoes a system closer to Arkham with an added layer of player agency, but it never feels like a carbon copy. And technically, it's impressive. Large-scale fights with dozens of enemies, and it holds together without breaking performance. A true testament to Black Space Engine. But perhaps because of it, not everything aligns perfectly. Now, this might be the most polarizing take on this video, and part of it stems from it coming together after my first 100 hours of the game. But with so many moves designed around single takedowns, it does make you wonder. Did the engine capabilities push the game towards larger scale fights, even if the combat wasn't necessarily built for it? Ultimately, it looks more like something the developers wanted to showcase that the engine could do, rather than something they found that the player would like to. But again, these are first impressions, and with such a large-scale game, new skills, tools, and systems might actually make me completely change my mind here. Visually, there's also a bit of excess. Particle effects, motion trails, it's a stylistic choice that will look good for some, but comes at a cost of clarity and immersion for others. It's adjustable, which helps, but I believe it would benefit from deeper customization beyond just particle density. I'm sure by now you're picking up a trend. Options. If there's one final thing I would have liked to see pushed further, it's ranged combat. Dragon's Dogma set a standard there that to this day still hasn't been fully matched. And yes, I am willing to die on that hill. Movement and combat give you a reason to engage, but exploration is where the game makes its point. After a few missions, something becomes clear. There's nothing reminding you of what matters. No constant reinforcement, no system pulling your attention back every few seconds. And somehow that void feels like freedom. But like so many wonderful, strange things, it's also uncomfortable. So you start looking around, not because you were told to, but because you don't know what you might be missing. And that's when it starts to click. If you've made it this far, there's a good chance you're part of the majority of viewers that aren't subscribed to the channel. And that's completely fine. But if this is the kind of content you want to see more of, subscribing genuinely helps push the content further. There's also a Discord if you want to be a part of the community. Just doing a quick side note here to let you know that every single Friday we give out a global Steam key to a random member of our community. We do our best to not just give out games you'll never touch and actually make an effort to select quality titles. With that being said, the giveaway for week 4 is currently live, so Feel free to check it out in the description or in the pinned comment below. In 1999, Hitmaker released Crazy Taxi, and with it, a design decision that would quietly shape the future of games. A guiding arrow. One of the very first times where players had to split their attention across the screen to complete an objective. Now, somewhere along the way, worlds expanded and the path of least resistance got built into them. More solutions, more guidance, more systems designed to reduce friction and hold engagement. On paper, it makes sense, but in practice, it changes the very nature of what exploration is supposed to be. On one side, you're marketing a game for its scale while simultaneously implementing a system that assumes the right way to experience it. Is it then not a reasonable assumption that everything will begin to feel smaller under this concept? Not because the world is indeed smaller, but because your role in it is. And ultimately, can exploration really exist if it's happening along a guided path? I touched on this in my last video, where I talk about how access to information is quietly killing the joy of discovery. There's no more journey to self-discovery or personal development through the organic roadblocks we were once expected to face. But that was about players seeking information. This is different. This is when a game gives it to you before you even think to ask. Now, Crimson Desert doesn't fully reject this idea, but it does hold something back. And because of that, it feels like it's asking you something in return. No hand-holding isn't just a design choice. It isn't just a nod to the fabled nostalgia of the golden age of gaming, a time where information wasn't so readily available for us to spoil our own enjoyment. It's a consequence of a world that can and should exist independently of the player. A clear example of how Crimson Desert approaches exploration can be seen in how it handles its systems. Everything is available, not because the game introduces it to you, but because it was already there to be discovered. Activities aren't gated behind progression, tools aren't locked behind an explanation, and skills can be learned through observation. You're able to engage with something long before the game ever tells you that you can. And naturally, that introduces the risk of redundancy. For example, you could find and participate in an archery contest while exploring Hernand. However, only a few hours later, a mission introduces the activity as if it was only now unlocked. And yes, that repetition exists, but it doesn't have to weaken the experience, especially when it can and should reframe it. If there's a real critique here, it's not the repetition, I would say it's the implementation. Let's look at a practical example. A friend might ask you to go fishing next weekend, but the fact that you've done it before doesn't make the experience any less meaningful or prompt you to refuse. This is because repetition doesn't deter value, and more often than not, it's actually fertile grounds to solidify it. In Crimson Desert, instead of leaning into this idea, these missions often exist as isolated showcases of mechanics, which feels out of place, especially when it already chose to open them to you beforehand. Instead of presenting you with these opportunities to deepen character relationships or expand the emotional weight of minor stories, these same characters often leave you as if you're a passenger to the experience.
Oh, you're back. That's the little stray I wanted to bring in. She's been wagging her tail ever since I fed her some meat. Looking at me with bright, hopeful eyes. Her owner probably got offed by bandits. She just keep waiting here, clueless.
If you care that much, you should take her.
Can't weather another of Andrew's lectures. Look, I already know getting attached will just hurt more. Hey, why don't you take her?
She could be trained to sniff out enemies.
And that's where something feels slightly underdeveloped and disconnected in direction. Because the foundation is there, it just doesn't always extend beyond itself. This can make some players feel like their sense of discovery is being unnecessarily halted, or in worst cases that the game is trying to extend playtime through dispensable content early on. But in most cases, the game isn't introducing its systems at all. It's acknowledging that you've already met them and allowing your own experience and experimentation to exist around them. And that distinction matters. It shifts the relationship between you and the world, because the world no longer waits for you to understand it, and naturally, curiosity follows.
Stop right there. You have a pass, don't you?
Pardon me, just passing through.
Need a pass to enter. No exceptions.
Don't make things difficult.
Hey, come over here!
Feels like I'm talking to a brick wall.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Doesn't have a pass? Toss him out!
Let go of me.
I'll find you. Kick you out myself. Our guards are all over the place.
The clip you just watched is from an area of the game that is blocked off. There's multiple ways to access it, and multiple outcomes to the means you use to try. Exploration can't be something you're told to pursue. It's something that by simply knowing that you can, you feel compelled to chase. Puzzles are a great example of this. They're not there to serve the plot necessarily, they exist as a piece of the world that can be unraveled, and they wait for someone to make a choice. Crimson Desert doesn't execute this perfectly, especially on the investment versus reward front, but it does get something right. Most systems feel intuitive without over-explanation. You see something unfamiliar, you pick up on small details, you try something. It works, or it doesn't, and you adjust, you try again. And slowly, patterns begin to form. Not because the game told you how, but because you paid attention. And that's when it clicks. You're not being guided, you're learning. And that learning doesn't come from instruction, it comes from curiosity. You see, most games try to give you a sense of familiarity. They prioritize comfort, clarity, and understanding. Because of that, they're built around you. Not you, the character, but rather you, the player. And there's a difference. The character belongs in that world. You don't. So something has to bridge that gap if immersion is the end goal. And more often than not, that bridge is guidance. Worlds are designed to adapt to your presence, to explain themselves, to accommodate you. Character first, story second, world third. And that flow works in books, in films, but games are different. They're not something you simply observe, they're something you exist within. There's a world of difference between witnessing a story and living inside one, and too often games blur that line, treating you like an observer in a space that's meant to be experienced.
You may not comprehend us, but you will comprehend our warning. You must.
None of what you are saying makes sense.
Our words are not meant for you.
What are you talking about? There's no one else here.
Crimson Desert tries to flip that idea. It avoids over-explaining itself, it doesn't rush to accommodate you, but it offers something else instead, an opportunity to understand it on its own terms. From Software games explore a similar philosophy, building their intention by the foundations of the environment. World first, story second, character third. But the world's progression takes priority over agency. No matter what path you take, you're only progressing as much as the world allows. Pearl Abyss pushes a different perspective. Like From Software, instead of building from the character outward, it builds from the world inward. But instead of limiting progression to that structure, it allows your agency to shape how you move through it. You encounter the world first, then the systems that define it, then the character, and only after that, the story. Because of that, your experience isn't controlled. Two players can walk through the same world and come away with completely different priorities and perspectives, different paths, different moments of discovery and progression, not because the game forced variation, but because it allowed it. And perhaps we've been looking at open world games the wrong way. We often praise stories above everything else, the writing, the characters, the narrative peaks, but those things don't last on their own. Even in games celebrated by their storytelling, what keeps us coming back is the world. The unanswered questions, the sense that there's something left to discover. It's why additional content can be released years later and somehow still exceed the original experience. Or like Red Dead Redemption, why unsolved secrets continue to create engagement years after its release. It's because the foundation was built to call out to it. And if it's strong enough, you don't need to force engagement. You don't need daily loops, artificial incentives, and constant direction. You just need something that feels real, something new, a fresh coat of paint in a beautiful building that at a certain point will need some love. Or perhaps more in line with the voice of this video, something that can exist, with or without you. And from that, stories don't just happen, they emerge. Not as the reason why the world exists, but as a consequence of it. In a world where games are constantly competing for our attention, maybe it's time we rethink what actually keeps us engaged. Because it's not constant stimulation, it's foundation. When the foundation is strong, everything else follows. For players, that means agency. You're not just completing tasks, you're forming your own understanding of the world, watching it develop through your interactions. And for developers, it means something just as important: longevity. You're not constantly fixing the experience, you're building on top of something that already works, expanding it, refining it, letting it grow. Crimson Desert isn't just doing something different, it's starting from a different place. And naturally, that leads us to the real question: how do you make something like this better? Because as strong as that foundation is, it's not perfect. One of the biggest challenges to that question is trust. How much do you trust the player? How much do you guide them? And more importantly, does it even have to be one or the other? Because if perfection is subjective, then the answer can't be control. It's choice. Right now, Crimson Desert sits somewhere in between. You can mark a waypoint and see how it doesn't guide you through every road. And yet, the HUD is still there. A reminder that you're still being directed even when the game is trying not to. And that's where it starts to feel like it's held back by traditional gaming conventions. Because for once, I'd like to see a game fully commit to the idea of exploration and discovery. Not rely on mods to create a more immersive or tailored experience, but build it in from the start. There was a time where games like Red Dead Redemption were rumored to push this further. Navigation through NPCs, reading the world, using the environment itself as your guide. But in reality, we still followed a line on a minimap, even when the world around us was doing everything it could to pull our attention away from it. And that's the disconnect. The world invites immersion, but the systems pull you out of it. Crimson Desert gets closer than most, but it doesn't fully let go, even though I'm arguing that it could. The important thing is that this doesn't have to be forced, it can be a choice. Imagine systems that teach you navigation naturally, not through UI, but through the world itself. Quests that guide you through observation. Landmarks, celestial positioning, environmental cues, not as a restriction, but as options. something that you can choose to engage with or simply absorb as part of the world that's there if you're ready for it. The same applies to travel, to camping, to the simple passage of time. Systems that ground you in the world instead of pulling you away from it. Even something as simple as asking an NPC for directions, the way games like LA Noire approach this interaction. Systems like these could begin replacing interface with experience, or simply enhance it. Two realities that I believe can coexist and create an entirely new meaning to a customizable experience. Then there are systems like cooking and alchemy, where intention and execution don't fully align. And honestly, they might be the hardest thing to fix. Right now, they fall into something familiar, repetitive preparation that turns into meat combat usage. And while that works mechanically, it doesn't even get close to feeling meaningful. There's an opportunity here to ground these systems, to make them part of the world and not just tools to manage outcomes. We've seen glimpses of that direction before. Systems that reward preparation outside of combat, that tie into rest, that work to create a distinction in pacing. Systems that enhance the rhythm of the world itself. And maybe not all of that fits here without deeper change, but the idea still matters. Because at its core, Crimson Desert is already doing something important. It trusts the players more than most games do. It just doesn't fully commit to that trust. Yet. And that's why this feels like a step forward. Because with every update after just about 2 months of release, Pearl Abyss doesn't just fix, they add options. And boy, is Pearl Abyss putting in the effort to showcase exactly that. As I'm making this edit, it's the 18th of May. So far, the developers have released over 15 updates, with around 10 of them having major impact on gameplay and introducing new content such as, but not limited to, and let me take a big breath on this one, private storage, new quests, new animations and attacks, new mounts and special mounts, updated movement, storage capacity, movement options, new difficulty settings, new usable items, new pets, completely new skills, new housing options, ability to name horses and pets, new legendary pets, boss and encounter rematch options, new creatures, more visual immersion settings like hiding gear or display sheet options, unfortunately still nothing on visual effects, but all of this completely for free. Now, these updates aren't small at all, and these are just the major changes besides your usual performance, content controls, combat UI, and graphic fixes. They managed to add so much in so little time while still fixing or adding things that were showcased to be important to the community. From this point, nothing is stopping them from adding deeper, more engaging systems with the principle of providing more playstyles and options to enhance the player experience. And if they do, this could be a generational leap into how we view developers supporting their single-player games, and what an actual live service model should look like. One that gives value rather than demand it from the community, and puts tools in the hands of players to make their experience perfectly tailored to their preference. Ultimately, the direction is clear. Less hand-holding, more systems, more discovery. But above all else, more options and more meeting players where they are. Not because guidance is bad, but because trust is better. And that's what makes this an exciting time for gaming. Not that the game refuses to guide you, but that it believes you might not need it. If this is the direction that games move towards, we might rediscover something we thought was lost. Curiosity. The willingness to fail and try again, tailor the experiences that don't exist through mods but built-in options, because the story you shape will stay with you far longer than the one you follow. So, after resurfacing from this rabbit hole I seem to have dug for myself, with my productivity taking a plunge from it, maybe I wasn't supposed to play this game just yet, but I'm excited for the future because of it. If you stayed through the entire video, I appreciate you immensely, and spare a moment to hit that subscribe and like button, and welcome to the channel. Remember to go to the Discord, there's a link in the description and a pinned comment, and participate in the giveaway that's ongoing right now where you can win a free Steam key. Thank you so much for being there, thank you for the love, for the support, and for being yourself. Much love.